Okay, guys, this next video is actually going to cover 4 slides. 8, 9, 10, and 11. So I want to talk now about some on slide 8. Meet me on slide 8. I gave you a link to an addiction recovery center that targets internet gaming disorder, as we've been talking about, or pathological gaming, which for all the reasons I've mentioned, this is somewhat controversial that an entire treatment approach, right, at a center that costs money and is private, is being used to treat something that's not a bona fide disorder in the DSM. And we have to talk about all that ethically, what that means, right? But take a look at it so you can see what they say on their page. I'm going to go to it myself so I can talk about it while I'm talking to you guys on screen. So I hope you guys take a look as well. For some reason, it's taking forever to load from my screen. So while it's loading, I will say it started in 2009 in Seattle. If you go to it, it's called the Restart Program. And if you scroll down, you'll see a big thing that says Behavioral Addiction Center, Video Game Addiction Treatment, Internet Addiction, and Screen Time Overuse, serving adults 18 and over, teens 13 to 18, etc. Again, I want you to think about the fact that this private treatment center in Washington, outside of Seattle, is treating internet addiction, video game addiction, social media addiction, screen addiction, tech addiction. This is not a disorder in the DSM at present. So is it ethical for an entire private treatment center that costs money to do so? Again, this started in Seattle in 2009. And in 2013, at this treatment facility program, they had a USB connected keyboard device that was created as part of the treatment protocol to provide a very low voltage shock to users who visited particular websites they were trying to spend less time on. This is a form of what we call aversion therapy. And if you've ever taken my classes, mental illness classes, for example, you've learned about aversion therapy. And what aversion therapy is a form of reconditioning that is based on classical conditioning. The idea being that if you pair something that the person finds pleasurable or arousing with something they find unpleasant, then they will link that once pleasurable thing, like playing games on the internet, with shocks, and then they will find it more aversive when they try to go on the internet to those gaming sites because they've now linked it with something unpleasant like a shock. Basic aversion therapy. It's not as controversial as some older therapies that were taken away that involved greater levels of shock. This is mild shock, so it's not harmful to the body. But again, an entire private treatment center is being used to treat something that is not in and of itself. I just need to fix something on our slide that I'm seeing because I'll forget after my video. To treat something that people have to pay a lot of money for, right? That is not a category of diagnosis in the DSM. So we have to ask about that. Now, if you meet me on slide number 9, I also want to mention something interesting to you about this. Pathological gaming, and even on a grander scale, internet addiction, started out as a hoax. Now, you may remember in the last class video, I talked about Young 1996 and 1998 coming out with research, the first sort of seminal papers on internet addiction. But the year before that first paper, in 1995, a psychiatrist by the name of Ivan Goldberg posted fabricated symptoms, as he called them, of internet addiction on his website. Fabricated because there was no such thing really as a work group yet that proposed criteria for the DSM-5, right? We didn't really have that yet. So what he did was he used the DSM-5, well now DSM-5, but he used the then DSM, would have been DSM-4, I believe, came out in 1994. So it would have been the previous version of the DSM. He used the diagnostic criteria in the DSM for pathological gambling, and he basically just substituted internet, wherever it said gambling, internet, as his model for what internet addiction would be. And he meant it as a joke, as in people are getting so tech focused, now we're all addicted to the internet. But what happened was, as is often the case, it went viral, right? And you guys know what that means. And it passed all over the internet to the point where it became something that people considered to be real, a real entity, a real concept. And you have to wonder if the mere suggestion by an authority figure, he didn't mean it to be real, he meant it as a hoax. But a psychiatrist puts this up, and because he's an expert and has authority, and it gets passed around the internet, people assume this is a new illness, and suddenly it takes off. And then a year later, we have research on internet addiction, 1996 by Young, and it spirals, right, from there into something bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. You have to wonder if this suggestion that started out as a hoax is what started this whole thing in the first place. What does that tell us? One of the criticisms of the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders is that it overpathologizes normal behavior, behavior that is part of ordinary human functioning, ordinary human life. And it leads to things like the addition of new diagnoses that really shouldn't be diagnoses, but nonetheless people profit from when they call it a diagnosis and start treating it. And I ask you to think about this information that I'm sharing with you in light of the prior slide with this specialized, private, expensive treatment clinic for gaming, internet addiction, and so forth. Interesting, isn't it? Makes you think, doesn't it? Yeah. Let's go on to slide number 10. You may or may not have heard of this before. It's a recently coined term, nomophobia. Nomophobia, fear of being without, you guessed it, your mobile phone. Now be honest, during watching my video, how many of you have your phone right there with you, right on the table or on your computer in front of you where you can see it, touch it? How many of you have it? I wish I could get you to raise your hand. Of course we can't. Take a moment and look around. How close is your phone to you right now? Nomophobia, where did they get that name from? No, mobile, phobia. No mobile phone. No mobile phone. So fear of not knowing where your phone is or not having your mobile phone. And this includes the rush of anxiety and stress and fear when people think they don't know where their phone is, or they're disconnected from their phone, and they feel like they're out of the loop with their family and friends and don't know what's going on, and they can't check their internet from their phone or their email. Nomophobia. I gave you a link on slide number 10 for a survey about how Americans use their phones, in what context, what activities. Take a look at that while you're looking at slide number 11, because on slide number 11, I'm going to discuss the findings of that study. 2,021 American adults aged 18 or older completed the survey. You can see on slide number 10 a graphic I pasted for you that I'm going to talk about on slide number 11. Where are U.S. adults using their smartphones? And as you can see, some of these are a bit interesting and maybe even surprising. Let's take a look at the survey findings. First of all, on the left side of slide number 11, I have a graphic, lost smartphone. What are we most worried about when we don't know where our phone is? When you realize you don't have your phone and you're not sure where it is, what are the things that immediately come to mind that Americans are worried about and having anxiety about? 65% in this study, they were worried about theft of personal info that's contained and saved on their phone. That could be contacts, that could be private messages they've sent, things like that. 58% worried about loss of contact with others during the time that they don't have access to their phone. 39% calls made on their behalf. They're worried someone took their phone and is going to try to pretend to be them and call their boss, call their boyfriend, their girlfriend, whoever. 33% were worried about someone else using their phone to log into their Instagram, Facebook, or other social media accounts pretending to be them, or just either posting stuff inappropriately or just looking at their private stuff. And finally, 26% were worried that someone was using their mobile payment options to pay their own bills. Now, let's get into some of the survey findings before I end this video. The researchers indicated that, one of the reasons that folks get so freaked out when they don't know where their phone is that phones have become a part of us, an extension of ourselves, almost like a body part, right? And almost like a best friend too. Now, the survey findings indicate the following. Those who responded to the survey admit they used their smartphone during the following, and this is on the graphic that I pasted onto slide 10. 9% of the respondents over the age of 34 and 20% between the ages of 18 and 34 report using their smartphone during sex. And not seemingly to have sex in some form, but they're doing other stuff on their phone while they're having sex. That's the content for a different lecture. 12% report using their phone in the shower. 19% report using their phone while they're in a place of worship like a church or a synagogue or a mosque. 55% report using it while driving. That's very disturbing for obvious reasons. 33% report using their phone during a date. So you could see they're distracting themselves when they should be paying attention to their date. 32% report using their cell phones at a child's school function. They're attending their child's school play and they're on their phone the whole time, or a music performance. And finally, 35% report using their phone while in a movie theater. And I've been annoyed by this. People with their bright phone screen when I'm trying to watch the damn movie. You just want to say, put that damn phone away. Nearly 72%, almost 3/4, so close to 75%. 72% of the respondents surveyed report being within 5 feet of their smartphones most of the time. That's why I asked, where's your phone right now while you're watching my video? 12% of respondents said they believe their smartphone gets in the way of their romantic relationship. According to another poll by Secure Envoy, and I gave you the link for that so you can also take a look at that yourself, 70% of women have cell phone separation anxiety, where they're actually having the kind of anxiety I was mentioning before when they don't know where their phone is or don't have it close to them. 61% of men report the same. And finally, 75%, so 3/4 of the participants indicated their smartphone is less than 5 feet away from them at any given time. So that finding was similar to the previous study that found 72% reported being within 5 feet of their phone. So you can see that our phones have become critical pieces of our bodies, our lives, to the point where people are finding it's interfering with their relationships to some extent. They're taking it everywhere and using it in life, from the bedroom to the shower to a date to other things. And they have anxiety about not knowing where it is for multitudes of reasons. So I will meet you on the next video. Are you going to go grab your phone? Did I make you want to go grab your phone? You probably have it already, don't you? See you on the next video.